Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive, this time all about music. Have you ever stopped to think about how those names of music genres, they're kind of like little sneak peeks into what they're all about?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like blues totally sounds blue, and who doesn't think of like energy when they hear the word jazz?
right,
So we're
right.
going to explore that whole connection between the names and the vibe of the music itself today.
Hmm.
And we're also going to get into how popular music kind of reflects the culture we live in and even touches on some pretty deep philosophical ideas.
Yeah, it really is fascinating how much information is like packed into those simple genre labels, you know?
Right.
They often reflect like the time and place where the music emerged from and even offer clues about like its cultural impact.
Yeah.
For example, think about grunge, like that word grunge.
It's grungy.
It like perfectly captured the look and the sound of like that specific youth movement in the 1990s, you know, the
Mm.
disaffection, the raw energy.
Totally.
Yeah.
Grunge really does sound grungy.
Yes.
And then there's pop music,
Yeah.
which is always changing because it's all about, you know, appealing to the masses.
Exactly. Pop music is like this cultural mirror, right? It
Yeah.
reflects the trends, the anxieties, even the aspirations of the time. It's like constantly evolving to stay relevant.
Which makes me think about how pop culture, even though it's sometimes dismissed as being shallow or whatever,
Uh-huh.
it actually has a huge influence on the way we think and the way we feel.
Yeah.
I mean, haven't you ever listened to a song that completely changed your mood or seen a movie that sparked a whole new way of thinking about things?
All the time, yeah. It's ironic, isn't it? Like mid 20th century philosophers might have viewed pop culture as being less sophisticated than, say, studying philosophy.
Right.
Yet pop culture, I mean, it often wins when it comes to like impacting people's minds.
Hmm.
Think about it. A catchy song or a compelling story can spread ideas way more effectively than some dense philosophical text.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really interesting point. And pop music especially has this way of conveying emotion so quickly and effectively.
Yeah,
Sometimes a 3-minute pop song can hit you harder than an entire book on philosophy.
it's true. And we can't forget about the impact of repetition in pop music.
Oh, yeah.
It's like incredibly effective at driving those messages home and making them like stick in our minds.
This makes me wonder if maybe philosophers could learn a thing or two from pop music and find ways to make their ideas a bit more accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
But I bet you have a much more insightful take on this whole pop culture and philosophy connection.
Well, absolutely. I mean, imagine the possibilities if pop culture, with its massive reach, actually started to like tackle those big philosophical questions head on,
Yeah.
about identity,
Yeah.
ethics, or even the meaning of life.
What?
I mean, take Kendrick Lamar, for instance,
Okay.
his album To Pimp a Butterfly. Like, it delves into these complex issues of race and identity
Right.
in a way that resonates with a huge audience.
Yeah.
Or consider Beyonce using her platform to like advocate for feminism and empower women around the world.
That's pretty incredible when you think about it.
Yeah.
But I guess we also have to acknowledge the not so glamorous side of pop culture too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That whole idea
Yeah.
of the culture industry and how it impacts how music gets made.
Right, that's a crucial point. I mean, the term culture industry was coined by Adorno and Horkheimer,
Okay.
and it critiques the way that capitalism often shapes the art and entertainment that we consume.
Uh-huh.
They argued that it's often more about generating profit than fostering genuine creativity.
So they're saying it's more about the money than the art itself.
Precisely. Consider the sheer volume of sequels and reboots that we see these days.
Yeah. It was
While they can be safe bets financially, they don't always push creative boundaries
right.
or offer fresh perspectives.
That makes me wonder if this whole system kind of encourages a more passive audience,
Yeah.
one that consumes without really engaging or creating.
That's a valid concern, yeah. Mass production can lead to a sense of disconnect from authentic experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Think about how often we see like rebellious imagery or social justice slogans used to market products.
Yeah.
It gives this illusion of activism without necessarily addressing the underlying issues.
It's true. And even with the internet, which offers so much potential for independent creators,
Yeah.
you still have algorithms and corporate interests
Right.
influencing what we see and hear.
It's this constant tension between individual expression and the forces of mass production.
Yeah.
But the fact that we're having this conversation, acknowledging these tensions, means there's hope for a more conscious and informed approach to engaging with pop culture.
So how do we navigate this complex world of music and meaning,
Yeah.
especially knowing how powerful pop culture can be?
That's the key question. I think it starts with recognizing that we have a choice in how we engage with it.
I like that. Choosing to be active participants, not just passive consumers.
Exactly. It's about becoming more aware of the messages we're taking, supporting artists who resonate with us, and maybe even trying our hand at creating something ourselves.
That's an inspiring thought.
It's like we're swimming in the sea of pop culture all the time, whether we realize it or not.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that we can learn to, like, navigate it with intention, you know?
Yeah, I totally get that. And that's what makes this whole conversation so important, right?
Yes.
It's not about like rejecting pop culture altogether.
Right.
It's about understanding how powerful it can be, both the good and the bad,
Exactly.
and then making informed choices
Mm.
about how we interact with it all. But where do we even begin with that? We've been
Yeah.
talking about some pretty big concepts here, from genre names to philosophy to the influence of capitalism.
Yeah.
So how can we actually like apply all this to our everyday lives?
That's a great question. And I think it can start with something as simple as like paying closer attention to the music we choose to listen to. You know, what draws us to certain artists or genres? What are the messages that are kind of embedded in their lyrics and sounds? Are they simply reflecting our existing values, or are they challenging us to think differently?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's about like really listening to the music,
Yeah.
not just having it on in the background,
Yeah.
almost like being a music detective,
Yeah.
uncovering those hidden layers of meaning.
I like that analogy. And once we start tuning in to those deeper levels, we can start making more conscious choices about what we consume.
Okay.
Maybe we seek out artists who are like pushing creative boundaries,
Right.
or those who are using their platform to advocate for a cause we believe in.
Or maybe we even get inspired to create something ourselves.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be like a masterpiece or anything,
Right.
but just expressing ourselves creatively can be so like liberating
Yes.
and empowering.
And that brings us back to like resisting that passive consumption that the culture industry often encourages.
Right.
When we create, we become active participants in shaping culture, not just like products of it.
I love that idea. And there's so many ways to do that too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Writing,
Yeah.
painting,
Mhm.
making music, or even just having like thought-provoking conversations with friends about these very ideas.
Exactly. It's about reclaiming our agency, our power to think critically and contribute to the cultural landscape in meaningful ways. And one powerful way to do this is by supporting independent creators and artists.
Yeah.
Those who are operating outside of that mainstream culture industry machine.
I agree. There's something really special about discovering an artist who's like truly passionate about their craft and creating authentic, unique work.
It's like finding a hidden treasure, isn't it?
Yes.
And by supporting these independent voices,
Yeah.
we contribute to a more diverse and vibrant cultural ecosystem.
And that diversity is so important.
Absolutely.
It challenges us to step outside of our comfort zones, encounter new perspectives, and expand our understanding of the world.
It's fascinating how music can connect us across cultures and generations.
Yeah.
It's a universal language transcending boundaries and creating shared experiences.
It's true. Think about how like a single song
Hmm.
can instantly transport you back to a specific time and place,
Mm-hmm.
evoke a powerful emotion,
Right.
or even create a connection with a complete stranger.
That's precisely what makes music such a potent force for change,
Yeah.
It can inspire empathy,
Mm-hmm.
raise awareness, and even mobilize people to take action.
It's like a soundtrack for positive change.
I love that. And it's not just about listening to music that already aligns with our values.
Okay.
It's also about being open to music that challenges our perspectives, makes
Yeah.
us think differently about the world.
I'm all for getting out of our echo chambers and exposing ourselves to new ideas, for sure.
Mhm.
That's how we grow and evolve, right?
Absolutely.
But let's be honest, it's not always easy.
Right.
Sometimes it can be uncomfortable or even unsettling to confront viewpoints that are different from our own.
That's true. But that discomfort can also be a catalyst for growth.
Okay.
It forces us to examine our own biases, question our assumptions, and become more open to different ways of seeing the world.
So we're talking about being intentional and mindful in our engagement with pop culture. Not just passively consuming, but actively choosing what we listen to, what we watch, and who we support.
Absolutely. It's about cultivating a sense of discernment, being able to critically evaluate the messages we receive and make choices that align with our values.
And that sounds like a lifelong journey.
It is.
We're always learning and evolving,
Mm-hmm.
and our tastes and perspectives are bound to change over time.
It's an ongoing process of discovery, exploration, and reflection.
Yeah.
And one of the most rewarding aspects of this journey is the sense of connection it fosters.
A connection with ourselves, with others,
Yes.
and even with the broader cultural landscape.
Exactly. When we engage with pop culture consciously, we become active participants in shaping its evolution. And that's an incredibly powerful feeling.
It's like we're all co-creators,
Yeah.
contributing to this giant, ever-changing tapestry of music, art, and ideas.
What a beautiful way to put it. It reminds me of this quote by the philosopher Alain de Botton.
Okay.
He said, "Art in its broadest sense is a constant attempt to create order out of chaos."
That's profound. And it makes me think about how music especially can be this incredible force for bringing order to our inner worlds.
Yes.
And even to the world around us.
It's like a universal language that speaks to our deepest emotions,
Yeah.
our hopes, our fears, our dreams.
Right.
And by sharing those experiences through music, we create a sense of shared humanity.
It's a powerful reminder that we're all connected, even in our differences,
Mm-hmm.
which feels particularly relevant in the world today.
Absolutely. And that message of connection is woven into the very fabric of pop culture if we're willing to listen closely enough.
So we've gone pretty deep here.
Yeah, we have.
But it feels like there's always more to discover
Mhm.
about music and what it all means,
Yeah.
especially how it connects to our culture and even shapes our own personal journeys.
It's true. Music is endlessly fascinating. And it all comes back to those genre names we were talking about before.
Right.
They're not just labels. They're like signposts guiding us towards a deeper understanding.
They're like clues in a musical mystery novel.
Exactly. Think about the blues, for example.
Okay.
The name itself, it reflects that raw emotion, the pain and struggle that birthed the genre.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that historical and cultural context, well, it deepens our appreciation for the music.
Yeah, it's like we're not just hearing the notes, but feeling the soul of the music itself.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the same goes for genres like jazz rock, hip-hop, electronic music. They each have a unique story to tell,
Yeah.
a history that's intertwined with social movements, cultural shifts, technological advancements.
It's amazing how music can capture the spirit of a time and place
Mhm.
and then transcend those boundaries to connect with people across generations and cultures.
It speaks to that enduring power of human creativity and expression. And this brings up a question: how can we apply these insights to our own lives, even if we aren't musicians ourselves?
Yeah, now that you mention it, how can we?
Well, just as we can learn to listen to music with more awareness and appreciation,
Okay.
we can also approach the world around us with that same kind of attentiveness.
So it's about tuning in to the stories, the emotions, the undercurrents that shape the culture we live in.
Exactly. Once we start paying attention to those deeper layers,
Yeah.
well, we can make more conscious choices about how we participate in that culture.
So we become more active and engaged citizens
Mhm.
rather than just passive consumers, just influenced by every trend that comes along.
Precisely. That's what makes this whole conversation so empowering.
Yeah.
It reminds us that we all have a role to play in shaping the cultural landscape,
Mhm.
whether it's through creating art, supporting artists, or engaging in these kinds of thoughtful discussions about these ideas.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what's the key message we want our listeners to walk away with?
I think the most important takeaway is this: pop culture isn't just entertainment.
Okay.
It's a powerful force that shapes our values, our beliefs, even our sense of identity.
And by engaging with it consciously, we can harness that power for good.
Absolutely. We can use it to connect with others, spark meaningful conversations, inspire positive change, and ultimately contribute to a more just and equitable world.
That's a vision worth striving for.
Yeah.
And it all starts with that first step of awareness, right?
Yes.
Recognizing the power of pop culture and then choosing to use it wisely.
So to our listeners, we leave you with this question: how will you choose to engage with pop culture? Will you seek out new artists, delve into different genres, or maybe even create something of your own?
The choice is yours.
Yeah.
But always remember that the music never stops
Yeah.
and culture is always evolving. So let's all make sure we're dancing to the beat of our own drums.
Yes.
And contributing to a world that's filled with harmony, creativity, and joy.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll wrap up for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of music meaning and the power of pop culture.